Good afternoon, respected dignitaries, dear members. At the very outset, on behalf of the Committee for Members in Practice of ICAI, we extend our warm and heartfelt New Year greetings for 2026 to each one of you. May this new year brings renewed purpose, professional growth, good health, and inner fulfillment to you and your families. As we step into 2026, a year full of possibilities, responsibilities, and transformations, we are delighted to welcome you to today's webinar on Bridging the Mindset Gap, a thoughtfully curated session that goes beyond technical knowledge and touches the very core of professional sustainability, relevance, and growth. So, starting with the webinar, it's my privilege to introduce the respected leader of the profession, C.A. Satish Kumar Gupta ji, the Vice Chairman of the committee. C.A. Satish Kumar Gupta ji is a Central Council member of ICI from the term 2025 to 29 and has earlier served as a Central Council member during 2019 to 22, contributing significantly to the Institute's policy and professional development initiatives. He currently serves as the chairman to the CPE committee of ICI and has earlier chaired the SMP committee of SAFA and CSR committee, reflecting his deep commitment to capacity building and professional excellence. A prolific contributor to the profession, he has authored several professional papers directly impacting members in practice. His services has been recognized through prestigious honors, including the Best Member of the Year Award, Excellent Branch Award, and the Special Silver Shield Award. In today's webinar on Bridging the Mindset Gap, his experience and insights are especially valuable as we reflect on patience, persistence, and the evolving realities of practice. May I now request C. Satish Kumar Gupta ji, our Vice Chairman, to kindly share the welcome address to our members. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Priyanshu. Thanks a lot. Honorable Chairman of the Committee for Members in Practice, Brother Madhukar Hire Gange ji. Speakers of the day, Vittal Bhai and Vinay Bhai, tech team and the team CMP, and my dear friends who are attending this webinar, a series of webinar, I would say, and that too on the vision of our chairman, that how we can develop our members to do practice at its best. Friends, Committee for Members in Practice at ICI is working in different angle this year under the dynamic leadership of Madhukar Bhai. And our aim is to build the capacity of members through webinars and workshops. And this particular webinar series, Bridging the Mindset Gap, is getting wonderful response, and members are happy with this particular series because some good ideas are being given through this webinar series by the renowned speakers, renowned authors. And I think after some time, this will take a new dimension for the practicing chartered accountants. Dear friends, at CMP, we have three type of works which we are doing. The first and foremost work that how we can build the capacity of our members through academics. And our chairman and the entire committee has formulated 6 type of, I can say, knowledge workshops to enable our members for a great value addition. We have already started GST litigation course. We are working and to start the MSME 360 review, the real estate consultant, virtual CFO, We are also going to start the how can we praying for our members is the benefits in import-export trade, which generally we are not going into. So this is the first thing where we are trying to build the capacity of our members. The second thing is the webinars through which we are uh, trying to build the value of our members to develop their patience and to develop other skill sets, because we believe at CMP, at ICI, that apart from chartered accountancy knowledge, apart from chartered accountancy experience, the things are now changing throughout the world, and we had to develop our members' skills also. So we are working on that part also. We have also started guidance note and practical resources for emerging areas. We are working, as I earlier told you, practice-oriented certificate courses, which are also very important. That we are coming out with the working paper management. We are coming out on wealth management, how we can create the wealth through that particular CMP practitioner for CMP practitioners. Friends, apart from this, we are also working that how we can bring some smile on the faces of our practicing members. For that purpose, we are making some tie-ups with several corporates, I can say. And in this series, we are working to bring new ideas, new things for our members. And we are we are working with the Adobe, we are working with the that AI, Meta AI, we are working. How can bring their Chat GPT, we are working. How can we bring some concessional tie-ups of the technical side so our members can be benefited? In this series, we have bring one very important tie-up for the members in practice. That is the tie-up with the EU Bank and in regard to credit card. I think you must be aware, because I am come to know that more than 7,000 members have taken that credit card, and several members are joining the CASA bank account also. So the features are very good. The lifetime free card is that, and the members, if pay the renewal fees of ICI through that credit card, they are entitled to claim some discount on the membership renewal fees, and that is 25% of discount. So this is not amount is not important, that how the what amount will be that particular calculation, but the important is the work done by the CMP committee under the dynamic leadership of our chairman, that how we can bring smiles on our faces, small smiles. So we are working a lot for this. And as I told you, we are working with some technical side also. We are working some, if you are aware about our practice management software, so I would request each one of you that if you have not gone through that practice management software owned by ICI, maintained by the CMP committee, you will be wondered to know that around 1 crore rupees we are spending every year on that practice management software. I would request each one of you to kindly go through that particular what are the features of that practice management software, and if you suggest that these features are not sufficient, we should add something more, let us know, so we can talk to the vendor and we can incorporate all your suggestions and make it more beautiful, more usable. But as of now, also few members, around 7,000, 8,000 members are using that particular practice management software, and they are happy. So if you are not even today subscriber to that PMS, that is live, that is free. We are not charging anything from the member. So kindly go through that particular PMS of the ICI, and if it suits you, suits your enterprise, so kindly adopt that, subscribe that, and if you want to give any feedback or suggestion, let us know. So I think we can make it more better. Today is the time of our speakers, Vittal Bhai and the Vinay Bhai, and our chairman will also speak. So I don't want to take much of your time. I just want to say Bye-bye. And all the best to each one of you for attending this webinar, and request you to encourage us for attending the webinars in a large number. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Priyanshu. Over to Priyanshu.
Thank you so much, sir, for setting the tone of this webinar. So we now move on to our first eminent speaker, CA Vinay Bhadji, a seasoned chartered accountant with over 3 decades of global experience in finance leadership, transformation, and shared services. His professional journey spans finance strategy, financial planning, and analysis, finance transformation controls, and building centers of excellence. Beyond his professional accomplishment, CA Vinay Bhatt is also a marathon runner, an apt image for patience, endurance, and long-term discipline in both life and practice. Sir, I would request you to please take your session. Over to you. In the meanwhile, I'll be sharing my screen, and I would request all the members to scan this QR code and share your answers with us so that to make this session more interactive.
Thank you, sir.
Over to you, Vinay, sir.
Thanks, thanks for the introduction. Unfortunately, last week I had a bad throat, so might be sipping a lot of water in between. This happened after the information. But why this question? Why we keep this in mind while you're responding? It is very important that you link in your life something that takes a little bit of time. When Madhukar sir and the team reached out to me, I felt this is a very important topic because in the current age where everything is expected overnight, results are expected overnight. Your client gives you something immediate, and he expects the response also immediate. So this is something that you would relate to. So we have a few answers coming in, and as we go along, I will tell you the importance of endurance sports or similarities between endurance sports and CA practice. Okay, just giving it another 5 or 10 seconds. So as you see, there are a few who are planning to, and quite a few have already started, and many are not yet into endurance. So it's like a 50-50, but few are also planning. And, yes, Priyanshu, can I share my screen? We have a good number, representation. So as the topic was of patience and persistence for a CA in practice. This is a key. There are two key pillars of long-term professional success. When I say success, this is also related to a person who is also looking at moving from industry to start his own practice, because that's something which I have done. I have actually started practice, went to industry, and came back to practice. So I just want you to relate this. This is a historical stock market for the last 25 years. So if you look at it, it has gained significantly over the period, and but has dips in between. Now, if you look at it, this dip in the year 2019 is lower than if I look at it in year of 2015 as well. So does that mean it is not going to perform? But if you have patience, if you had a little bit more patience, you would have earned twice amount or significant return as compared to 2015. And if you had invested here, you would have earned significant number or a percentage of return when you are looking at a return over a long term. I just put in something which is remember the 1,000-day rule. Okay, this is something which my boss had actually told me that something which needs to give you a return is 1,000 day. Even if you look at an SI or in the stock market, they say roughly you should look at long term, and long term is anything beyond 18 months. And 18 months to 3 years is something that you look at and you will beat the market. Right? Keeping this and the endurance sport in as a background. Typically, marathon is not something which you run fast immediately. You have your goals, you have your target, you know how you are, but it's a long journey. To build successful CA practice, fundamentally, it's a long-term journey. You have wins in few wins immediately, and few wins that come in. You might have some certain setbacks or pushbacks in the middle, but you had your target, you keep your focus on the target and continue your journey long term. So running a 42.195 kilometers, there is a popular saying which says you hit the wall. That is something around 32.28 to 32.30 meters. That is very, very important. At some time, practice will also test you in terms of when you're starting a fresh practice. Is it right? Because somebody who is in a corporate world may be already getting his or her salary and may have also got an increment, but you are struggling to meet your target. So that's something which you should win. Success emerges from trust with clients, uncompromising ethical standards, and delivery of quality of service. These three, if you are focusing on these three targets, you'll definitely make it over a period of nature of CA practice when you're starting fresh, right? Unless you're joining somebody established already, there is no instant success. Why do I say that? Because you have to build your client base, you have to start getting your fixed revenues or billables in place. So the first year is more of trying to get your foothold into this area, a new area. Second is once you have started getting your base, you gradually increase your client base. And third is experience driven credibility. Once you have established your credentials, somebody who has started in 2010 or 2015 now would have a certain level of clients, and cross reference becomes very, very easy. There will be references, there will be client feedback or testimonials that help you. So these are the three nature that you should keep in mind every time when you're starting your business. Okay, client acquisition. So first and foremost is client acquisition. I'll come to the backend infrastructure, what you need to do, your positive thinking, what is the backend work, the next slide. Trust take time. There is follow-up and value creation that you need to do, constant communication, sharing relevant updates, findings, case laws, something that you are developing on, industry insights, etc. with the client, builds more trust, and looking at relationships over transactions. Sometimes what happens is there will be certain of more something which is available, but they will be asking you for the phone. Can you help me with this? I just need a quick update. Can I get an opinion on this? So those are things that you'll slowly start building it. That is the training that we go to an endurance. So when you know you have to run a marathon, you start your training maybe 3 to 4 months in advance, right? Similarly, these are some things that you will invest in when you are building your client base. And this is something which I picked up from my experience and something which I thought I should start sharing with you. Stage one always is not I have built office or I'm going to practice. Stage one is something where once you are qualified or you are in CA, what is the mindset you're going in? One is you are clear that you want to practice. That is something which is close to your heart. That's something which you have always thought of. You have listed your pros and you have listed the cons of employment as well as your practice. Willingness to accept that there will be seasonal revenues in the initial. So when I say seasonal is you might earn something in few months, there'll be a lull period. So those are things that you should be aware. And long-term orientation. Now, when I say orientation is long-term, when you are in here for the long term, and there will be short-term earnings, but over the long term, you will be your own boss, right? So that's something which you look at. Skill readiness. While the CA exam and the articleship and your experience in studies, etc., and all the CPEs that you've done will make you ready for practice. There are certain things that you should keep in mind. There will be constant evolution. There will be constant changes. There will be technological evolutions or enhancements that will. You should be ready to start looking at this as a constant learning that you will do, and you should make yourself ready for the client to be answered. Because what happens is, as the industry evolves, when I'm saying industry, it's not only the practice, but also in terms of the industry at large, right? The Now we are talking about GCCs, we are talking about SaaS based, we are talking about AI. A lot of this changes the way we deal with our client. Right? So that's something which you should be aware of. And be ready to make investment in your soft skills as well. And compliance and infrastructure, of course, PCI membership, the firms who are going to be your partners, how you are going to structure your firm, and what is your basic infrastructure that you are going to look at? Office space, your technology investment, your staff, right? That is something that you should look. What happens is typically when you get a client, then you say, okay, now I will hire. Sometimes it may or may not work. If it works, great. But if it does not work, why? Because the client is expecting you in this to turn around most of it immediately. He will not wait for a person to join. You train him and then give you the results. So he should be prepared to hire in advance, which is what most of the companies do as well. Sorry. Now coming to the practice journey that I would say, I have broken it down based on my experiences into about six stages. Stage one, I explained to you already. Stage two, you remember the 1,000-day rule. That is typically 3 years. It focuses on client acquisition, your articles, your staff, local businesses, and the type of work also depends on. It will be quick wins, something which the client will say, I don't want to go to an expensive, but somebody who will be available at the time that I want. So those are things that will small audits, bookkeeping, financial, shared service, CFO services, small ones. But important factor is also that the cash flows are irregular. High personal involvement because you are setting up your practice, the client expects you to respond to an email or be present in the meetings. And it is also about credibility building because you want to prove yourself. You are in the market. So that's the stage one. And stage two. Stage three is more of when you have established, have a set of clients, you know your billing patterns, you know how much staff you have, what you can take, what is it that you want to build on the right. So that's where the stage three comes in with repeat clients, referrals, like I was speaking earlier. A lot of testimonials come in, a lot of credibility builds with these clients if you are able to generate and meet the expectations. And reputation now builds locally between a set of circles. If you look at concentrating circles, you then there is one more circle which is your existing clients and their contacts is next, and then comes the vast area across multiple geographies. Here you will be hiring qualified staff enhancing, I mean, more articles and inviting partners. Here's the first stage where, if not already in partners, you will be looking at collaborating, right? You will be looking at taking freshers or somebody who is also in your same similar is to tie up together and work together a partnership. Then comes growth and specialization. This is a very important, which is from stage 4, where you will choose and what you need to practice. You will choose, this is my area of expertise. Now, if I look at GST, if I look at income tax, if I look at GCC or a CFO services, if I look at enhancing reporting, I'll do technical capability and give a shared COE, CFO service, forensic, those kind of stuff. That's something which you will start focusing on. No right answers, depends on each individual tastes and likes and the capability that they want to build in. And clients base starts increasing from mid-level, from entry level to mid-level to a larger organizations. And your interaction starts changing. You will move from typically from being present in all the meetings to being present in important meetings. This means that you are actually empowering the level below, right? And then you will also have time for business development, speaking areas of improvement with existing clients, seeing how you can expand your footprints or your services within the existing as well. Then comes the stage. The other two stages are more of information, uh, transformation and legacy and maturity, where you will start becoming a mid-size or an established firm. People recognize you by the firm name and individual practices. So this is the 3 or 4 stages that I would want you to think about and see that keep this as a vision that you want to do. Years given here are indicative. It can move up or down. I'm sincerely hoping in this advanced technology and the kind of resources that are available, it will only go down. So that 1,000 days can become 500 days, and the 3 to 6 years can become 2 to 3 to 4 years. So that's something which you should keep in mind and never lose track of this particular thing where you want to be. So when I started, I want to be in this particular area of practice or this particular um, area of expertise. I had kept that, and then for that one, I also listed down what I need to do, areas where where I should invest in because they may be something which I have a little bit of shortcoming, and keeping that vision in mind always helps you. Now this comes with the endurance spurt as well. You know that you will have a quick win when you complete your 10 kilometers in cycling. When you do more than 400, 500 kilometers, a race with, you need to take a break in between. You need to hydrate yourself, refuel. So that's something which is where we will say, okay, now I've met my target or not met my target. What do I need to course correct? That is something which you will need. And that requires patience. And if you have not met your goal in the first stage 1, stage 2, doesn't mean that you will not meet. So that is something which you need to be persistent. Now, a few points to ponder with. And just to let you know that I'll be taking questions immediately after my presentation. There are about 5 or 6 more slides. I want to make it more interactive. So I kept about 10 to 15 minutes for questions as well. And some points that I thought was accuracy and delivery is very, very. So that's something which I realized that if we are not able to deliver and we are not accurate, it can lead to reputation damage and it can lead to your incumbency period being extended. And of course, errors have consequences and patience ensures diligence. Now, something which requires time will require time, but it also requires you to start functioning and doing your due diligence, doing the professional that is required as this, and ensuring that the client gets the best out of you. That's something which you should look at. Yeah. Coming to the slide, right? Like I said, managing client expectations effectively, that is something where your patience comes into play. Your persistence on convincing the client what is the right method, what is it that needs to be done, what is the improvement that needs to be done, is something that you will look at. Something which I have seen is unrealistic deadlines. They give you today, they expect the result tomorrow. May not happen. Can happen, but I'm not saying it will not happen, but it may not happen. Why? Because data may be voluminous. The kind of expectations the client may not be aware of the financial requirements or the actual end results that you are expecting it to turn around. So that's something which you'll have to do that. So that is where you need to set expectations with the client. Incomplete information, and this is a very common issue that we face, right? Most of the startup, they say that my finances are accurate. When they say that, they know that what is my revenue, what is my expenses that I'm paying out. They don't know what is my accrual, what is my purchase order spending, what is it that is going to come in, is my revenue recognized very well? They won't be aware of that. Those are things that you would need to start establishing a relationship through checklist, education, and training the client as well. When I say training, is making him understand what is very, very important, what is it that you would need to do, and how you would help him if all these things are in there and in the right manner, how you can build it and turn around based on the expectation. Calm communications, I have seen the clients actually losing it, saying that no, this is a layman job, anyone can do it. It's a very common phrase that you will hear when you're starting a business. But keeping calm under pressure is very, very important. And when it goes to keeping calm under pressure, it is not only for CAs in practice, it's for all professionals. And look at alternatives that you can offer the client, saying that this will not happen. For example, uh, there are multiple valuations that needs to be done. How it affects each of those revenue, those kind of stuff that affects the valuation. You should tell them that okay, if I'm able to increase my revenue by X amount, my valuation goes up by this value. If I'm able to get my funding, or if I'm able to push this a couple of more, I'm able to bill and encash, my positions improve and I'll be able to better. That's something which you should look at. Because I did a lot of consultancy for startups. Cash flow was always an important heated discussion, saying that no, I need to pay this. Why can't we pay it? This is what we have billed. But they don't know that billing is different from collections, because there is a 30 or 40 or 50 days time period of credit. That's it. That's something which you'll need to educate the client. Handling resilience, setbacks with resilience, client loss, fee disputes, economic slowdowns, and learning from failures. Client loss is significant in a environment where there is more of startups, and when they get their funding, they move to naturally a larger firm in practice. But that doesn't mean it is something to do with you. You need to analyze what can be done, how do you do it, and how do you build more relationship. Because what happens is while they move, they can actually refer you to certain other startups, or have offshore something that is not their core cup of tea, and then you can start working towards that. So that's something important. Fee disputes are very, very common. It's better to have a memorandum of understanding, billing based on deliverables, pre-agree. Those are things that comes in. There may be chances that you might have to let go certain bit of it, but that's something which you would need to look at it and see how evaluate the work done. I'm not saying that every time you have to let go, but have the documentation in place. Economic slowdown, funding not coming in. There are certain things that you will have to walk with the client, understand that how the client's spending and the funding is being affected, and how you can help them to come with this overall economic slowdown as well. And every setback carries a lesson. So if the client is dissatisfied and left you, doesn't mean that that's the end of the world. You need to take the learnings and have do a root cause and see that it doesn't come back to you in future, and take these learnings and move it. For example, deliverers may have been affected. Your expectations were different from the client expectations. What is it that the data missing that prevented you from doing the job that you were assigned to? So these are things that you need to document and get back to the customer, to the client. I won't dwell much on this. This is something I would say that is very, very important. You will come into positions where there is a pressure to compromise integrity and build on your integrity and reputation. These are things that we will never compromise. These are things that builds your brand value, your image in overall uh, market over the period of time. Now you would have seen that I'll go back to the stock market slide, right? Now you would have seen I have used a lot of words which I have said that it takes time. You have to be persistent. You should be a bit more patient. Right? Why? Because some of the things that comes in is it's like a chicken and egg situation. When I say chicken and egg, it is more of you need to invest first, and then you start getting the billing. How do you invest first? So you start investing, look at what is the technology, that is the bare minimum that you need to do. You have the resources in case a client comes in tomorrow, or maybe a CFO services, GST returns, reconciliation, income tax assessments, or your accounting services, etc. Right? So how do you build that in? You start building cases, you start giving proof of concepts, you start analyzing with the clients, meet his requirement, and come up with a use case, come up with a solution that would meet it. So one of the clients that I was working with, or I was trying to pitch in, right? He had an existing accountant who was helping him with doing everything, but he needed a real difference in a CFO. But he was not willing to hire a CFO because current billing didn't allow it. So would a fractional CFO help him? Yes, that would have helped. But that was not the answer that when I started building a questionnaire or having a discussion with him. What he was looking at is more in terms of a financial controller with a business analyst or a business finance guy. Need not be a CFO, but somebody who will tell him that, okay, this is the client, we have reached, this is the billing that we need to do immediately so that the 30-day period ends on such and such a date, and we will be able to recover the amount, get the billing in, and we will be able to invest or meet our expenditure. And when it comes to the shareholders or the investors pack, what are the things that needs to be done? It is your existing financial position, yes, that everybody will do. But from a business finance perspective, what are the new clients that came in? What is my billing for the next 3 months? So what I did was I just did this was much earlier than the AI. What I did was I did a few simulations in an Excel and told him that this is the PPT that I got. This is my future that it look like. So from my annual revenue, which is projected at X amount, will grow by about a delta of so and so. But that delta helps me in investment, return, and maintaining my cash flow position. A simple three slider with business reasons. These are the clients that we have got, and it is not a short term client, it is more of a long term vision that we had gotten. So that's something which we did a two slider and we presented to him. He was pretty happy with it. The next investors meeting, when he presented it, it looked that somebody in the accounting team understood the business as well. So he was pretty happy. And then he gave us an increment for fees as well, plus a lot more things to be done. Because why the increment of fees? Because we were doing more of business analysis role as well. And we were also helping him correct the regular accounting in terms of being more from an accountant to a business partnering role. So that's something which is very, very important. And what this helped us is It helped us in terms of ensuring that the audits were completed much more in time because we were looking at it and advising the accountant who was already working. And that helped us in terms of putting in the investors at much ahead, which helped him in terms of getting the second round of funding as well. Why this is important is the 1,000-day rule. We started it in year one, and by the end of the year two, the client in end of year one, at the end of year two is where he was satisfied with our service, and by the end of beginning of year three, we were billing him much more than what we were doing, including giving him CFO services as well as giving him accounting services as well. And the auditors were pretty happy with the outcome because we were more proactive. We were sending the report returns, we were filing the returns, we were giving the monthly reports, MIS reports in terms of financials, preparing all the checklists and the reconciliation statements as required, schedules, etc., much ahead in time. That's why it's very important to be persistent and look beyond. When I say persistent and patient, is looking beyond the client requirement as well, because the client may not be a financial expert, may not have gone through the rigmaroles of all the finance terminologies, expectations, etc. He will be very good in business, but that's something which you should look at getting in there, right? Now, how do we scale up? Typical example is training the staff. You have gone through the training of articleship, etc. Similarly, slowly build your team in training and meeting client expectations. When I say training, it can be soft skills. More importantly, it can be client specific training as well, because the client needs varies one in one, or it can be regulatory training as well in terms of all the changes that comes in, create learning opportunities within the staff, and then slowly build that. What this helps you is the client itself, while you are building the client relationship, the team below you will also be looking at the client requirements proactive. So then that what happens is there is a fallback option and there is a plus two that is there. That will help you. When I say plus two, is effective delegation. So certain meetings, every meeting you cannot be present one because you need to do more of business development as well. The effective delegation helps you in getting routine tasks done by somebody, routine meetings and interactions being done, and helps you in terms of over the period of time being present in only those meetings where it is absolutely necessary and work on the business development or enhancements. And of course, building systems and culture. Why I use the word systems is also in terms of technology, your checks and balances, your returns, your dashboards. As you build the client base, you will be having your internal dashboards as well as dashboard to your clients. Like typically, this is my sales, this is why this is went down, this. So the client is already impressed. And more in terms of apart from his own business, also looking at the regulatory changes, those things come in. And all this is your training cycle to build your practice, right? And practice growth is a journey measured in years, not that's why we say 1,000-day rule. So that's it from my end. I opened now for any questions that may be there. Anything that people would want to, you can type it in the chat box. I will be happy to answer.
Yes, sir. So there are some queries which we have received from the members.
Yes.
So how does one know whether to persist patiently in a struggling patient's model or diversely pivot to a new one?
I say struggling persistent patient's model is maybe a client. I'm hoping, I'm assuming that the person refers to a client that is coming in. See, what happens is you should know over the period of time what the client's expectations are. Is it something that the client is only looking at faults, or is also giving you a chance to hear, right? To be heard, right? That's very, very important. And second is it something that you think is worth going through the time, right? Or how much of efforts that you're going to put? Sometimes you have to let go. Like I mentioned in earlier, sorry, there has been a time where there was a dispute that this has not been delivered, etc. When I was practicing to a startup. For me, it was very important to not to let go the client, but for me, it was a not a difficult decision to make, saying that okay, yes, I will let go the fees. Okay, this is if you say I've not delivered this to your mark, I will let go a certain percentage of the fees, but over the period of time, I will start working towards, but you will have, I will bill you again when we are delivered. And then we entered into a revised agreement, which clearly laid down what is the client's responsibility in terms of deliverables, a memorandum of understanding, and what is my deliverables. It was clearly listed down because over the period of time, or as the business changes, the requirement also changes. So that's very, very important. On coming to the second part of the question is something new that comes in, you should look at it in terms of the bandwidth and is it something that you are available and it can be done and delivered, right? It should not end up that you are losing something which you have built over the period of time for something which is something new that comes in. Change of direction is totally different. I will come to that separately. It's a topic, a different topic for the discussion. But you view the pros and cons against each one of these. A new client versus existing client who's a bit sticky, right? But if you are able to win it, you will be able to get a lot more. But at the same time, look at your bandwidth to deliver to the new. I hope I've answered the question. If not, we can discuss really.
Can over patience itself become a mindset trap that delays necessary transformation?
Very good question. Yes, over patience sometimes can be a challenge. Like I said, marathon goal. Okay, let me give the example to a marathon because when I started training for this, it was a hectic 4.5 months of training, and I was not a runner at all. I was zero into fitness. The goal was to finish it in a certain time frame. So when you look at it, when you're not meeting that, it doesn't mean that you are going to be patient and not do it. You have to start doing it. When I said when you take a break, you analyze that particular break. So the strategy was every hour you take a refreshment or refuel yourself. Similarly, at every year you refuel, you look at it on how you're going. You re-strategize. Never lose the sight of your vision. What happens is too much of patience also lead to complaints. So that means that you are not maybe not performing. Maybe you will say that okay, yeah, it will happen, it will happen. That doesn't happen. God helps some people who helps themselves, right? So that's a saying that I follow. So your effort should be there. You should not be so patient that you are not making those efforts. That is a thin bridge or thin line of, I would say, always be very careful. Very good question. It depends on each situation as well. But I would say always take stock. That's why I said after, if I've broken that down into stage one, stage two, three, stage four, if you take it yourself and you say that stage two is not 3 years, I want to do it in 2 years. Where are you against that? That is something which you should look at. If you're not performing, will you say that, okay, yes, I will reset it to 2.5 years or 3 years? Do I have the bandwidth? Do I have the resources, including the financial strength to make it available to that? Or what is it that I have to do differently? There is something that needs to be changed. I have to work. That's something which is always keep track. Hope I've
Uh,
answered that question.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir. The next one is how do we balance patience in building long-term credibility with the pressure of immediate financial sustainability in practice?
This is again linked to the previous question as well, but I'm just adding the financial
Mhm.
angle to it. It is very important. See, we are here that all this becomes a bread and butter, right? Tomorrow, how do we get it? So you should also know that there is a certain minimum fees that you need to charge. There is certain um, rewards that you get, or your fees that you get for the efforts that you have put in, if I put it in that. How much is it that is invest in the future, and what is it that you're planning to get return immediately? Now, investing in future, if you do say maybe you have hired resources and you're not doing something to get those resources engaged, is something that you should start building on. That's why it's very important to know your vision, saying that okay, I will have a billable, like we prepare a project report for yourself, for your practice, saying that okay, 1 year I will have this much of billables, this is my cost, this is what I can afford, this is my sustainability. When I did that, I said that okay, I will not look at returns apart from a bare minimum salary that I want to do. First 6 months, zero. Next 6 months, I expect so much. Next 6 months, I expect X. This is my investment in the business. After 2 years, how much of returns that it is going to give me is well and I'll evaluate it. Keep that vision in mind, keep that figure in mind, and start working towards it. You will definitely achieve it, because as the various industry is moving, there is more and more requirements for a lot of work that comes in. May not be the top end work, but the work that comes in which pays you significantly. It's a matter of making your connections, making your pitches, being ready for those challenges, and meeting the client requirement is something that you should look.
There is, we often say that whether to stay in traditional practice or venture into a specialized area of service. Do you think general practice is gone so far as consulting is concerned? Right now, we are performing better than AI models. But when about 5 years of now, if you favor specialization, how to adapt a specialized practice area if you have been into a traditional practice for 5 years?
Good question. Again, let me give you answer it in a more different way, right? When we started our practice, or when I first started practicing, MS Excel was just in. Google was not it, right? So how do we do the research? We had to literally go into buying subscription to physical books and start working. It used to take. Now what has happened? It's become online, and Excel capability has increased multiple bounds. Why I'm using Excel and all the subscription, I will tell you. Now, when the capability of Excel increases, your modeling increases. So, depending on traditional practice, you do your checks and balances, everything. Now, trial balance comes in, you prepare your schedule 6, automatically done. Macros are there, everything done. Everything done. You also have your controls that you want to build in. For example, okay, I will look in what is my average sales for the last 3 years. So it has gone in. What is my geographical distribution? Everything you will get it through your macro, and then you'll say, this is my audit plan. This is what look in. These are my standards, right? Standard checklist. You will also see that build. This is your traditional subscriptions come in online. You just do a good keyword search. Everything is in. Now look at it from where that moved from physically reading everything, marking, making notes, to making availability and bookmarking in an online, to AI doing everything. So when you say traditional practice, there will be a movement on traditional practice with technology, with how the business scenario and the world around us is evolving. When you say traditional practice, that also has changed significantly as compared to earlier, right? So it is a call that you want to move to something which is new, more in terms of uh, uh, SaaS or FAFD, forensic, etc. Those are newer practices, though I would say it's there for quite some time. That is something that a call that you need to take, but traditional practice will also stay because that's not going to change. But the way you do it will. Any other questions?
This is the last one. How do you draw a line into desperation and follow-ups when onboarding a client? Coming from a point that when you start practice, the prospect clients often treat you as if you are available 24/7, and just because you are in need of work or clients.
I faced this personally. I'll tell you from my experience, it, yeah, it is a challenging thing, sir. It is also how you present yourself, right? While you are desperate, it should not be that middle of the night or those kind of stuff that they are going to take you for granted. I burned my fingers sometimes when they took in those advices, etc., without uh, remunerating me as well. But most important thing is when you start giving advices, you have to start hinting the client that these are all chargeable, billable, and you can say that okay, over a period of so many hours, I can give you a discount, or I can start looking at it because you are going to be a first client, and give him the biscuits or the rewards that you would also say that I will put your credentials, I will put you as an example when I'm building in. These are things, but not naming the client or not revealing his secrecy. But that's something you have to take a call whether it is available, setting the boundaries very clearly. But saying that it also depends on the client's urgency as well. If he has hired you at a time when he is looking at raising funding, if you partner him after the funding comes in, you will get a lot more work, lot more billables into your credit. So you have to evaluate at every situation. This is what example I was giving was when there was an accountant that they hired us. He was less practical. Can you be a CFO kind of stuff and those kind of stuff. But when we started giving him reports that he was actually looking for more for him in terms of invest, because they use terms CFO, high level, those kind of things very easy. They want to grow 100 million in the next 3 years. But how do you achieve that is something he will tell you in terms of how he wants to grow, but not in terms of finance and actual do how you do it. If you start building in, it will come in. So very important factor. You draw the line when you are going to be available. What is it that is reasonable to you and acceptable to him as well? Something which you should slowly build in, and this comes in over a period of time as well. So that's why a little bit of patience, little bit of persistence, and pushing also is required from our end.
All right, sir. So thank you so much, sir, for your session. So now we go on to the next speaker, CA Vittal Rajji. So our next speaker brings a powerful and timely perspective for today's theme. With over 30 years of experience in risk assurance, IT governance, cybersecurity, and enterprise risk management, he has advised boards, senior management, and regulators in India and globally. A distinguished professional with multiple global certifications, Sri Vittal Raj has served on international boards and key regulatory and technical commitments, including those related to cybersecurity and emerging technologies. This session is a wake-up call, not of alarm, but of awareness. Over to you, sir.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you, Priyanshuji, for that kind introduction. And thanks to the Committee of Members in Practice, Chairman Sir and Vice Chairman Sir, for the opportunity here to share some of these thoughts on a very unusual topic in a way, because this is more of personal and it comes from personal experiences. And first of all, whatever I'm sharing is because what I learned from my gurus, and I'm sure some of you sitting there could very well be part of my gurus whom I learned something from. So these are more of, these things are more personal to everyone, but I'm only sharing from whatever I have learned from multiple of those teachers who have taught some various dimensions of life. And I think that's where we really stand our heartful gratitude to each of them. So the topic, if you see the theme of the very series is bridging the mindset gap. So it's more of, looking at our mindset and how each of us perceives that, and each of us, brings in the very perspective of thinking, which is influenced by the DNA, by the environment, by our upbringing, and so many other things that we really get into. So one of the things that's challenging our profession today is, when we used to say practice as usual, and I still remember. Now I'm entering my 38th year of practice, and when I started way back then, and the first day when I was in my office as an article clerk, I was given a telephone directory and asked to total up all the numbers there. So of course we didn't understand what it was all about, but then very compliantly, obligingly, we did all that. Little to understand that was building your capability to think, and especially on your arithmetical capabilities, which of course nowadays you don't even require, and somehow it is kind of fading, unfortunately. Now, having said that, now whenever we have to think about something which is so usual, I always am reminded of the elephants. Whenever you go to a sanctuary or to a temple, you will find these large mammoths, which are a couple of times of our size, only tied with a chain, which is a chain to just a pillar somewhere, or maybe a tree. Now, looking at the size and the strength of this animal, it doesn't take one, kick to really come off all that, but it never does. Why? Because if you really look at it, right from when this child was born as an elephant, a baby elephant, it is tied to that. It keeps on trying for a while to get off that hook, but it never does. So it has formed in its mind saying that I can't get out of this. Sometimes what happens is when we are in traditional practice for a very long time, what happens is, and when we are asked to say now, either you push out, you break this and get into new areas, or you're dead. And that's a kind of frequent thing which you keep on hearing nowadays, which also is resonated in one of the questions in the last series. So there is this mindset which sometimes becomes the biggest prison to get out of. And that is where I think it is very important to see how we can find tools which can help us get out of that. I'm just going to share some of the tools, and one experiment which, if with your permission, we can take as a starting point. If you look at all that we have been taught in our spiritual side of things, I think one of the things is to stay calm, right? So let us try to do one thing. Take a first level experiment. I hope I'll have your participation in this, because it has worked miracles for me. I'm sure it would do that same for you. What we do is, we would go into 2 minutes of silence with eyes closed, right? And simply just not think anything as much as possible. You don't have to chase your thoughts. You just be there. Just be calm, just for 2 minutes. I'll keep these 2 minutes and tell you when the 2 minutes are over. Request you to put your microphones on mute. So we'll have just 2 minutes of silence with your eyes closed. Just calm, relax. If you have some problem, just breathe a little bit, little deeply, and let's see what will happen to the next step. Are we okay with that? Okay, let's go ahead. So we'll start the stopwatch now. 2 minutes from now, I will announce, and then you can open your eyes. Thank you so much. If you may very slowly open your eyes, take your time, please. Very slowly open your eyes. I'm sure those of you who have been into a lot of meditation, you know the power of silence. But I'm sure some of you who maybe did it after a gap, you do realize that it transports us into a different state of mind. But with that state of mind, now let us look at the next experiment, which is for just a minute, just close your eyes and first read this question. What if I had not been a chartered accountant? Just close your eyes and then think now. So here, obviously, you have to think to see what if you had not been a chartered accountant. Yes. So if you may slowly open your eyes, I'm sure you got some perspectives of a question that possibly many of us never even dare to think. What if I was not a chartered accountant? But let us again, just introspect to say, do I have a very clear view of the future of my practice as it stands today? Just look within yourself and see if there is a truth to say, yes, I have an absolute clear view of my practice, or not really, or maybe I never really given a thought to that. And is that not a very important question, because that kind of determines my near tomorrow and the far tomorrow that I have been into for so long. And it could be somebody who has started a practice only a couple of days back, or somebody who has been in practice for much more than the number of years that I have been in. So it's important to understand where are we with regard to the practice of the future. I'm sure many of the, as part of your firm exercise, you would have been doing this exercise of understanding, where we are going to be. And that's a very important exercise. If it is not done, it is very important that we start doing that, doing a brainstorming workshop amongst your partners, your peers, and whosoever is there in your firm, to say where are we going, and what will we be like, let's say in 2030, what will we be like in 2035, and obviously that requires a little more of understanding of the environment in which we operate. So if we take that, look at this, and this is something I want you to do. Is a very interesting exercise, because if you were physically there, I'm sure we'd have enjoyed this, but you can still do that. If, let us say, you're given a chance to rewind your career by 20 years, right? So we are in 2025, and let's say we are in 2005. What is the three things that you'll approach differently were you given a chance to restart your career 20 years back? You start answering that question, you will find that there are certain things which you would like to differently. And those are extremely important, because which means that you started really thinking somewhere in a subconscious on how to handle whatever you're going through, but again, from how you should have been. And that is where this important thing comes up. I don't know if you recognize this guy, but this guy is one of the top architects of the world. He's no more. His name is Buckminster Fuller. Now, if you really look at this guy, he was, credited with creating some of the masterpieces of the world. He created an entire climate-controlled city, which was somewhere in Europe. And the story of this guy is, at the age of 32, he was doing various jobs, and he was not getting recognized. He was being shunned, and he decided to end his life, unfortunately. And he went to the Michigan River. He kind of tried to submerge himself. But then a sudden flash of thought came to his mind. Anyway, I have lived the life the way that others told me to live. Why not I live the way that I want to do? And that's where he restarted his entire career from the age of 33. He started completely on his own. I'm sure those of you who are here in practice each of you need to be credited, because it is not an easy step to take to get into practice when the job is offering you a fantastic pay scale. So he did that, and he said that I would do whatever I think the way that I want to do it. And that is where he started creating such masterpieces, which were initially, of course, were not regarded well. But then as he went by, he became one of the top architects in the world. And all because he decided that I will do it my way. I will understand what is the requirement of the client and see that I deliver not just to it, but far more than what is the expectation, which will be beyond their imagination. And that's what he did. So if you really look at, is it too late? The question that we need to ask now when it comes to our practice. Now, there was this very good question somebody raised in the last session when Mr. Vinay was speaking, saying that, okay, everything seems to be changing. What do I do with my practice? The question really is it too late to change now? Because especially if you are a firm and you are in the a senior professional, sometimes there is this kind of thought that comes in. I mean, I'm done with it. I don't think I can, start anything new after this time. But then, is it possible somehow? Is the question that some of you may ask, and some of you may decide that yes, no, I got to make it possible. I'm reminded in the recent times of one of the participants in the AICA session, the artificial intelligence course, which is done by the chartered accountants. I'm one of the faculty there. And there was this gentleman of 80 plus years sitting in the front row. I was just wondering what brought him here. I'm sure he has seen his career, well retired, I would guess. And I was obviously intrigued by his attention, his asking the questions. And he was very keen to not only read, know the theory, but to practice. And it was indeed a very inspiring, moment for me to see this gentleman. And when I asked him during the breaks to say, sir, what inspires to begin, says, this is very simple. I'm just trying to keep myself busy learning something. And I don't know, maybe it's something which I can help the client with. Would you believe that he later on landed up creating 3 of the bots, AI bots by himself? So he was not just attending for the sake of attending, he put it to use, and somewhere I'm sure he would have benefited his client. So age is absolutely no bar when it comes to renewal of thinking. But let's look at it. All of us are blessed in one way or the other, because we have passed COVID. We have seen death in the closest quarters that any generation would have seen. And there are very good lessons. If you really see Digital India program, take for example, was a failure till the pandemic happened. But the pandemic changed everything. And if you see elderly people in our homes, whether it be your parents or grandparents or whatever, for the first time, they never looked at mobile banking so far. But that mindset changed, they started looking at it. And today, they swear by mobile banking. They say, because why should I go to the branch? I can get everything done on my mobile. So if you really look at it, circumstances certainly bring us to such situations wherein we have to change. So change is a more intense constant than ever today. Because if you really look at AI, by the time you go to sleep and come back in the morning, there are already a couple of tools which are released now. And some of them got outdated, some of them are taken off. So can we say that technology is the biggest villain today? And the victim is possibly all that processes which can be very easily automated using the AI? Well, that's a question which needs to hang around, because if you really look at the scare that is being built is significant around it. And it is not that all of that is without any meaning. There is some truth behind that. But it is important to not get carried away by these impressions alone, but to test it in our context to see, is it real or not? Now, the question here really is, do I have it within me to go beyond my practice as usual? Because what typically happens is, let us say I want to get into cybersecurity practice. Now, I have been, let's say, as a chartered accountant doing finance and accounts and been an expert in this for a couple of decades. And here I am faced with a situation to say, okay, now start learning cybersecurity. Now, is it something which has to be imposed on me? Not really, because cybersecurity is just one of those avenues which is creating a big challenge today for most organizations. In fact, what we need there is chartered accountants, surprisingly, who have a very good understanding of the business knowledge, very good understanding of risk management, very good understanding of internal controls, audit process in the context of technology and how it drives an organization. So one of the key things that you would really want is whether your mobile phone, your mobile banking is secure or not is always a concern that you have. And you'll be more than happy when somebody provides you with that assurance. So imagine translating this into the boardroom concerns. If you take some of the best surveys, take for example the Productivity Survey. Every year they do this survey with top CEOs across the world, across industries. And they ask them a very simple question. Can you tell us what are your top 5 business risks? They are not talking about tech risks here. They are talking about business risks. But surprisingly, on the top 5, at least across the verticals, they found that cyber security, artificial intelligence, using technology and getting assurance on technology is amongst the biggest risks that more organizations face from a business perspective. So the big question is, do we have today the number of professionals who can assure these boardrooms to say, yes, I understand technology. I have seen that from the lens of your business, and these are your risks, and this is what you need to do about it. And that's one very strong advice that every boardroom today is looking to, and we don't have professionals who can do that. Then if you look at the global digital transformation that's happening and the rate at which it is happening, and you can very well see the number of programs floated by the government of India, and we can see that we are in for the race of AI across every dimension of the economy that you can even think of. And every such dimension requires assurance. And who can provide the assurance? None better than us chartered accountants. But that does not mean that tech is the only area where we have a future of practice. There are other areas as well. But we have to understand that tech is changing the very paradigm of how each of these dimensions work. So let's take this, quick poll within yourself. How much of a practice is compliance based? Is it greater than 80% of my practice is compliance based? Or let us say about 50 to 80% is compliance based? Or 50 to 20% is compliance based? Or is it like less than 20% is compliance based? If you answer this question, and if you are on the left-hand side, which is more than 80%, I think it's very important that you already have a very clear future strategy for your firm. The same thing applies to the bucket B also, which means that while you're thinking, but it is not strong enough, wherein you have really charted out your digital transformation of your own firm and the service that you offer to your clients. If you are in the band 3, wherein you are 50 to 20%, I think it's good that you have started your journey, but I think it's very important to accelerate it pretty fast. And certainly, if you are at D, I think that's great, because you are one of the few wherein you have looked at compliance practice only as one part of it and going really on the further side. So if you are too much on the compliance practice side, you really need to have a good clarity about where you are going in the future. Now let's take the number of people who are coming down to practice has certainly significantly reduced, because there is obviously great attraction in terms of what the industry offers, in terms of the pay packages, in terms of the environment, in terms of the immediate opportunities. But let us please understand, we are intellectuals who are trusted as the trusted third-party professionals. And that is where it makes us very unique. In fact, many of them, you heard from Mr. Vinay, he was into practice, then he left practice into the industry, came back into practice. He obviously is more empowered when he comes back into practice, because here you are not bound by how much of intelligence you can really use with the client, how much of your experience you can use with the client. There are experiments that you can do with the client. So that is where it sets you completely apart when you say that, okay, I can now look at things the way that I deem it to be fit. And that is exactly where you start building your own reputation in the profession. I mean, let's look at compliance practice, where it is growing. If you look at the GST rollout 2.0 or the latest one which they have rolled out recently, or you look at many of the software which are already coming in, whether for income tax filing or for GST filing or whatever, you find that more and more of automation is taking off the drudgery of this collation of numbers, etc., whatever we used to do as an army of people in our firms. And is it really worth fighting with those who are offering these services which are automated? Like, I'm sure you would have seen the offer from GeoFinance, wherein you could start filing returns starting from rupees 24 up to rupees 999 for some expertise that you pay. Do you want to really compete with these kind of firms is the big question that we need to answer. Yes, traditionally 10 years back, if you go, well, there is certainly a good reason about it. Even now, there is good reason when you go into the slightly more technical returns or which are a little complex around it. That makes sense. But when it comes to basic returns, I think we are very clearly seeing this as an example where you find that the industry is kind of taking this wave into a completely different dimension in terms of the size that it can take. So one thing which we are clearly seeing, and I'm sure those of you who have already passed AICA, who attended this course, you would recognize that how simple AI knowledge can transform much of the drudgery of our current compliance and audit tasks. Those of you who might not have tried, if you go to CA-GPT, which is available on our institute's website, and let us say you have been given the audit of, let us say, a new industry which you have never looked at before. You can go into the industrial forums. We have over 50,000 plus annual reports which are put in there. And you can go by the industry that you're looking for and ask ChatGPT to generate an audit program. I'm sure those of you who have already done that, you would have seen the benefits of it. Something that you, your partners, your seniors, your managers sit together and spend so much of time on is done in a jiffy. At least it gives you a premise on which you can improve further. And imagine what it does in terms of the quality of audit as well. So what we are looking at is, even with the nascent stage of this AI technology, it is transforming all that which can be, the lower level of jobs, if I say, in terms which are repetitive in nature, which are structured decision making, all that is certainly going away into the AI. So the big question I always keep on asking is, what will be the value of the accountant in the future? We call ourselves chartered accountant, and the word was christened, which was based upon the context which was there at that particular point in time, makes a lot of meaning, no doubt about it. But the question is the accountant dead because of AI? Let's look at that answer a little later. But then certainly is challenging this word called accountant, as we have already been called, and we continue to be called in this. Now, if you really look at the Viksit Bharat 2047 program that I'm sure you would have been following, and we are looking at a 5 trillion economy in the near future, there is 36% of this GDP comes from SMEs. And if we look at our clients, which are many SMEs, the fundamental question that I want to ask is, have you ever sat with those clients and discussed other than compliance? Have you asked them what their problems are? How can we help you? Or let me understand simply what your problems, and then we can see what we can do about it. Believe me, the skills that we have are far, far sophisticated and complex as compared to what the SMPs require. The small businesses, they require very simple things. So I think if you learn even a bit of how to really go about solving their problem, they will thank a ton, because one decision in selecting the right vendor or the right stocking level can save them money. Otherwise, if you really look at it, if you are a compliance professional, the client only looks upon you at the expense and the liability side of the financial statements. We need to move to the asset and the income side of the client's financials. And that is important because they would see that as a partner in progress, as we are. So that is very important that we understand that the scope is not just restricted to India. We are the youngest nation in the world, amongst the youngest, if you really see. And we have a whole lot of manpower, talented manpower. And in this particular space, in fact, I must bring this to point here. Mr. Madhukar used to say the GCCs, how they can contribute in terms of the competence with chartered accountants being there. That is a very, very pertinent point. So if you see, we stand a huge opportunity wherein not just tech, but the use of various domain services that can be offered to the world as a one-point window. And let us please understand, there is always this widening digital trust deficit, which opens up a whole new world of opportunities. And I'm sure you have seen many of these cases which are reported in the media, wherein because of the internal controls not being commensurate in size and nature in the IT of an organization, lots and lots of losses have been reported and a lot of errors in reporting have happened. I mean, this is the World Economic Forum report, which is called as the Future of Jobs report. I would urge each of you to please download this. It is available, just if you Google it, you will get it. It is called the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report. What it has done is, it started in 2023, and this is a slide from 2023, when it started mapping the various job profiles. And if you look at those dots here, you see that, white dot in between. The right hand side represents that the job is still valid. The left hand side, if the pointer is moving, it represents that the job is either already dead or going to die. Right now, interestingly, if you see on the right hand side, this is the list of jobs which are vanishing. You see accounting, bookkeeping, and payroll clerks. You don't need to get perturbed. This is in terms of the lower level services of bookkeeping, etc., wherein AI is taking over in a very big way. If you look at Tally itself, they are coming out with an AI based Tally, which is going to change a whole lot of things in the coming days. And we are already seeing that happen with the SAPs of the world, the Oracle, the financials of the world already. So I would just stop here, request Priyanshu ji, if we can take this question on the Mentimeter, and I'm just going to log out from here. Priyanshu ji, if you can please help with that, please, one moment.
I'll do that, sir.
Yeah, I'm just trying to stop the share. Yeah, I stopped the share. So let us take a poll, friends, and see how you feel about that. I just have a few questions. So the question is, what do you think is amongst the top attribute that will keep a chartered accountant relevant in practice in the future?
I would request everyone to scan the QR code and then they can give their answers. I would request all the members to please scan the QR code and they can give their answers, or you can join mentimeter.com and use the code 66160436. It's there on the top of the screen. We have two more questions also. If you can go on to the mentimeter.com, the slides would be there at your phone system, the device you are using.
Priyanshu ji, we'll stop when you say.
You tell me when to stop, sir.
I think you have the count. I think we are done with 70 responses, if I'm right. I don't know. We'll just give another 5 seconds. Great. Anyway, thank you so much for your participation. Highly appreciated. So let us look at the learning out of this. Many of you have rightly chosen choice B, which is ability to handle change, as a right one. Why is it that this is what we are looking at? Because let us please look at it. Our challenge to updating our professional skills and expertise. This is not the first time we have had it. AI is just one of them which is threatening us, but we have had this challenge over years, and it is very important to understand how we strategize it. More than that, how do I get into a new area which I don't know, and that sometimes is often a resistance to change that comes in. And many of us already taken also selected quality of staff and investments in AI and analytics. You are absolutely right, that is no doubt a very important aspect. But one of the problems that many of these firms face is when you start training that staff on AI, there is so much of demand in the market, they will fly away. Now the big question that comes back to you is, was only providing the training enough, or should I have done something else to retain the staff? That also becomes another big challenge. Not only that, if you look at investment in more and more of AI and analytics, it is also important to build the capability to how to leverage on this for your firm. So overall, if you really see, the question talks about the top attribute that is required for a CA. We certainly need the ability to handle any kind of change. Here we are only looking at one dimension or few dimensions of change. But I'm sure when you start really looking at the firm, so once you develop that capability to handle change, as Mr. Vinay was also saying, in the earlier session, I think that empowers us to handle any dimension of change in the manner that is most relevant and appropriate for your firm. So we'll stop here. We'll go back to the Priyanshuji. Can I go back to the selection, please?
Yes, you can select it. You can share your screen.
Thank you. Okay, so you're able to see my screen. Right. So the question again goes back to saying that, are we awake to the world and what's happening around us? I'm sure all of us follow so many of the knowledge spaces, but important thing is, have we looked at the 360 dimensions of these are the perspectives which I must have, which are important for the survival of my firm, and look at following that. In fact, in one of the firms, what they have done is they have 16 partners. They have formed groups, and they have given a map of the perspectives which are critical to the firm's growth and the quality of services. And they said two partners allocated to handle each of that, and every quarter they change their roles. So what it has done is it has brought in so much perspective into that, and everybody is falling on something which is important and trying to bring that to the table. So as Socrates said, the wisdom begins in wonder. Unless and until we start looking at things and we get enamored by it, and that is where exactly it prompts us to change. Otherwise, you look at it, oh, okay, one more regulation, okay, one more thing. Well, there is not really much about it. So, for example, if you take the DPDP Act, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, it opens up such a big opportunity for the chartered accountants. Many of us don't realize that much of it is governance controls and less of it is technical controls. And it is so easy for a chartered accountant to quickly get into that space now, because it is the gestation period when the implementation has to be done before May 2027, wherein chartered accountants with their own clients can look at providing some very important advice to them on saying that how they should handle that. Because I'm sure you'll be aware that the minimum fine in DPDP Act starts with 50 crores of rupees for non-compliance and goes up to 250 crores of rupees. That's something which can ruin an enterprise. So obviously, they'll be more than glad if you're going to talk to them about DPDP Act. And that's not something too tech savvy alone can take it. It has tech, but you can very much partner with the tech guy to understand, because 60 to 70% is governance controls. Only 10 to 20%, if you see, is the technical controls. Rest is all common sense, right? So I would think that that's a great area where we should catch the bus early before anybody else looks at it, because we are the most well positioned to understand, as I said, risk management, understanding the compliance, understanding how to handle the business context of all this. So one, which always should be on the radar is what is happening to the business space, at least with regard to our clients. How often, that's a question we need to keep on asking, how often and on what dimensions do we talk to our clients, have conversations with them? As I said, if it is going to be only compliance conversations, the client also doesn't see anything beyond compliance in you. The moment you can add even one dimension of your capability to that and say, hey, take a look at this, possibly you're losing money here. And you can make a complete difference to the way that they look at chartered accountants and us. So very important to constantly follow what is happening in the business landscape, right? And if you see a very simple thing like anti-dumping, which is one of the duties, which many of us don't even practice in, but is a huge area, because if you really look at what's happening across the globe with various commodities, that's again a very huge area of practice. And it involves a use of analytics, wherein you can leverage on AI and basic analytics to really find out a lot of dimensions and help a firm to understand how they should look at the forecasting of their various sales and purchase and inventory dimensions. So transforming business landscape, I'm only giving examples. Second is the new risk paradigms. Our greatest strength is professional skepticism. We doubt everything to start with, which is in a way good. What happens is we are able to see risk much, much earlier than anybody else. When I started transforming myself from the regular accounting practice, which I was doing till 2020, and after that I started switching, 2010, but it's in fact it's much before even that. So last 20 years, what has happened is when you looked at what the boardroom expects is the chartered accountant to deliver business language of what is the risks that IT is giving to their business. So you don't need to be a techie completely to do that. Of course, like a gold loan, I always say, when you audit in a bank, you need to know that what contributes to the value of the gold and how would you protect that or how would you assess that. But beyond that, you depend upon the appraiser to give you that. The same thing can be done because the standards very much help us to take the services of an expert. So that is where the new paradigms comes in. Then resources at play. What kind of team are we building? Do we have a vision for the firm? And are we hooking them to the vision so that that's how I can sustain talent? Because future talent is going to be in significant demand. I'm telling you a very simple thing like AI. If you really see, organizations are racing to train their employees on AI. And if you already get a trained employee, let me tell you, the AI CA course of the institute is one of the best in terms of applied AI. At the time of designing, I had the privilege to be part of the design team. We looked at various AI courses offered right across the globe. None was really meeting the requirement of how a business point of view should be looked at and what we need to teach, which will deliver as a chartered accountant using AI in applied sense. And that's exactly where, if you see, it is very important to equip yourself and also build the vision by which your entire team is fixed on. Let us please look at regulations. They are becoming onerous by the day. If you see this 39-page act of DPDP, and it talks about ruining an industry if you don't really, comply with it. 50 crores to 250 crores is some money, So we are looking at regulations which are becoming very sharp. IT regulations. If you are a bank, if you are audit of a bank, you have to look at the RBI regulations, which are stringent on cybersecurity, IT governance, and a whole lot of areas. Same happens with SEBI with regard to market intermediaries. You have the CSERF framework. The same thing with regard to IRDA, which also has announced its own framework. So we are looking at tremendous need for people who can assure around, one, the compliance with regard to these, the regulatory frameworks, but also provide the confidence to the business to say, you are safe or you're not safe, and this is what you need to do. In fact, at this point in time, just like to branch off a little bit, one of the, the very popular guys who is Klaus Schwab, and he is the global chair of World Economic Forum. All he said was very simple. 2017, that's when he said, and that's how it makes him a visionary. Look at this. He is saying that we stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to one another. It's already happening with us. Who decides what we eat? It is the Swiggy's and Zomatos of the world. Who decides and who knows where are we going? The Ubers and the Olas of the world know where are we traveling. What you purchase, Amazon knows. So we are looking at a complete dimensional change and more of vulnerability, fear, anxiety building into the system amongst various stakeholders. And that's where we require the trusted third-party professionals like us. Because we are looking at something, as he says in the second part, in its scale, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before. If you are thinking that AI is so scary, we are just going to meet quantum, which is going to completely change the way we look at things. A quantum computer can be 2000 times more powerful than a normal computer. So imagine the same rate of crime, the same rate of errors, the same rate of perfectness. So everything has to be completely architected well. Otherwise, you're going for serious trouble. Before you even think a second, the loss is already gone. So that is where, we need guys who understand business and also understand the dimension of the technology. So let us please remind and warn ourselves. There is always comfort in stagnation. We are comfortable, cozy, sitting in a particular chair for year after years. We get so comforted that we say, no, I don't want to really get out of this, without realizing there could be much more comfort available in other spaces. So it is, I would always take it that we have to keep ourselves challenged, and that is what is important for chartered accountants. We become professionals when we started our CA career with multi-dimensional skills. We become professionals to solve real-world problems, but we get stagnated with a loop of deadlines, emails, approvals. That's what happens, and our kind of life revolves around that if we are in only compliance practice. So the very important question that we need to ask is, because compliance can hog your attention forever. When you get out of that, you got to break free and ask this question to yourself: is this the direction I want to take my firm in? Look at this. When we are stuck with compliance, one of the key things that we always see is the routine grind, which is collecting documents, chasing clients, uploading attachments, portal crash, the wait after that, the forms report errors, then you have again a wait after that, portal glitches, hangs, missed deadlines, pay penalties, cancel. We got used to this again and again and again, and we somehow derive a kind of sadistic joy to say, oh, okay, I got this, thing right in the form. But from a client's value perspective, it means nothing, because the kind of effort that you put into all this in terms of the processing of all these forms ultimately goes into a very simple equation to ask to say, can AI not do it better for us? Can we not look at something which can fill up forms very quickly? And we already know that there are tools in the market which are doing that. So it is important to start thinking outside the box. Very important to keep cautioning ourselves, ask the question, are we stuck in the nectar of street stagnation and feeling proud about it? And that is a very important question to ask, because it can be very comforting to say, oh, 20 years of practice, we still run this. I know how the nuts and bolts work. Yes, you know. But is that really putting you where you should be in terms of your capability worth? Is the question. So I think time for the next question. If Priyanshuji, you can kindly help with the next question, please.
Sure, sir. I would request members to scan the QR code and give your answers.
So let's look at this question now. You are offered a large assignment, very attractive, in a domain of knowledge that you are not really an expert in. You just have working knowledge around it, but you're not an expert. What would you do? So you have these choices. If you see, one is politely turn down the engagement since I don't have the necessary expertise and scale to take up such assignments. Or two, network with partners, experience in the subject matter, and take up on their strength. Okay, which means you are relying upon your partner. I prefer not to take up any such assignments which are not in my domain of expertise, which I already decided. Or I'll work with an expert, leverage technology to deliver the engagement. Thank you so much for your good responses and your participation. I think the winner clearly seems to be option D, wherein we see that you would work with an expert, leverage technology to deliver the engagement. I think that is very positive thinking. It doesn't mean that the other thinking is negative. Again, the only thing that we need to do is relook at these contests, because these are all spot questions which we ask, and you may not have time to really think through that. But if you really think through where you can also retain your proprietary image, at the same time not miss out on the professional commitments and the quality requirements that we are required to do, and you can have enough knowledge to really control that. And that's why it says that you have a working knowledge. It's not that you didn't have any knowledge. But where it is, for example, let's say you want to do an IFC audit. Okay, IFC audit you got to do as a statutory auditor, but what do you do when you are looking at the tech part of this, when the IT controls? What do? You start taking the help of a professional who is expert in that, or maybe another chartered accountant who can help you with that, because that way you're achieving the audit objective, at the same time not using your proprietary standing on that. At the same time you are making sure that the quality of the audit is not affected. So that is where D qualifies as the best answer. I hope you understand. Shall we go back, Priyanshu ji? Yeah. So we'll quickly go on to the other slides. I just have about 5-7 minutes to complete. So there are huge areas of practice, as even Vinay ji was saying. We got a lot of new areas which are emerging. For example, investments and valuation is a very, very promising area, but you need to really develop good understanding and around the verticals in which you can specialize in. But what happens is, why many of us don't take it up is, oh my goodness, it will require a perfection which I cannot handle. And so you say that no, I always want to look at things perfect. But when it comes to valuations, it is not the perfection that counts. It is exactly how the basis of your preparation really counts. So there are different dimensions which goes into that. So we need to dive in to understand with somebody. I think it's very important to get a very clear understanding of the domain before we really push ourselves into anything. Two, in terms of technology risk advisory, as I told you, it is huge. You have both areas wherein you can help organizations with digital transformation, or be a consultant for implementation of artificial intelligence or any other, for example, blockchain or any of these technologies, emerging technologies. But generally what stops us from doing that is the unknown fear of tech. I don't know coding is generally we start with. Actually, it doesn't require any coding. In fact, you'll be surprised that when you can handle an IFC in the true manner, or how you can do it, you're already there as a security professional to a great extent. So it is no greatly different. Only thing, the complexity varies a little bit, but thanks to the chat GPTs of the world and the kind of guidance that is available from the institute, you can very easily achieve that. You also have global guidance which is available from various other professional bodies if you really want to do that. Then, of course, the areas of business forecasting, capital strategy, we say, no, I am in small practice. I can't take up these areas which are very high sounding. Actually, there's nothing about it. I mean, it's all getting and joining up with one of the senior experts, and simply just, you could be an understudy. Don't charge any of them. Learn how to go about doing that, and that's where you get it. Of course, an area of practice which I would desist from not going is only GST tax processing. It is going to be paying you for at least another 5 to 7 years, but not more than that, because what's going to happen is the department itself, if you look at the GSTN system, has invested a complete separate cell, a complete directorate of artificial intelligence. So we are going to look at significant changes in the way that this entire platform works. So GST and tax litigation will always remain a green area, because that is one thing which requires you to really apply your senses. Of course, you can take help of AI. Of course, CFO services, vCFO, virtual CFO services are in great demand. That is something which can help. Forensics is a huge area of practice because it is becoming more and more mandated. But all this, what happens is we have doubts of competence. I mean, we'll have doubts of competence in any dimension for that matter, but it is somewhere to take that very first step in the 1,000-mile long journey, as you say. Then we have ESG, emerging areas of sustainability, integrated reporting. We still think it's theory, therefore let's not get into that. Nobody is going to really ask for these services. Nobody is going to take seriously. Not really like that. Because in many cases, if you see, overseas clients, they insist that the organization must have an ESG clearance. Otherwise, they don't take them as partners. So we are looking at a huge market there as well. And there are already ESG standards. The institute is also coming up, and in fact, IFAC already has standards around that. So we are looking at a good practice which is emerging around that. So if you are somebody who has that thing towards this, you can certainly take up. Another great area for India especially is a family business and promotional advisory, because we feel we can't penetrate, already the auditor is there. Not really like that. It is quite possible that you may be giving a completely new dimension. And some of these things, no, it requires personal familiarity of the family. Nothing like that. Today, if you see the next gen of these the family firms, they got pretty educated youngsters who really want to make things happen. I think that's the best opportunity for us to really get into that. And that is corporate trainings. We may, the amount of wisdom that you have generated over the years is absolute, crystal clear diamond knowledge for somebody. But we always think, oh my goodness, I'm not so good at stage, I'm not good at all this. Actually, if you really look at it, even when all of us start the first time on the stage is always a problem. But we just focus on what we know and what we can share in the interest of somebody, and that is where. So the mindset gap enigma always stands out to be that how do I now manage that mindset? Everywhere, if you see, it is not that opportunities are not there. Are we looking at those opportunities, looking for those opportunities is a question. Take this, for example, these are all happening today. How IT is transforming the entire world. Look at how inventory management happens or the warehouse management happens. Cobots. Look at high-speed welding, which is completely controlled by artificial intelligence. Agriculture, robotic operations with regard to surgery, etc. And look at healthcare. I'm just giving you a few fields. But imagine you are the statutory auditor of one of these firms. Internal controls, remember this? Operational technology will autonomously write up the accounts. Internal controls are commensurate with size and nature of business, something we have to say. So unless and until we are diving into all this and understanding how this technology works in terms of controls, how can we even deliver a verdict on that? So it is very important that to stay in the same place, we got to run faster, as they say. So that is what is happening with even statutory audit or internal audit of such enterprises. You cannot say no to technology. Now, let's take the last question of the day. Priyanshuji, can you please help me with this, please?
Sure. Request everyone to please stand, or if you have already logged into Mentimeter, it is there on your device. You can give your answers.
So the question is, in an artificial intelligence driven professional world, which capability will command the highest value for chartered accountants? Option 1 is speed and accuracy of statutory compliance. Option number 2 is in-depth technical interpretation of standards. Option 3 is ability to exercise judgment in ambiguous cross-border situations. Option 4 is experience measured in years, of the number of years in practice.
I would request everyone to please give your answers.
Thank you so much for all your very kind responses. I think the verdict is pretty clear. So why it is the third one is because it encompasses the others as well. Because if you see the ability to exercise judgment, that's where we need to have a professional judgment to say what will work, what not will work, what is required. And we are looking at applying that in a cross-disciplinary situation. And that is where exactly it changes the very dimension of things. So Priyanshuji, thank you so much. Can you please share? Yes. So when we look at our practice, I'm telling you just, one question which also came up during the last session was, how do I get started if I don't know anything about it? The best place to start any experimentation is your own firm and your own clients. And that is where you can test it out with controlled tests, wherein you don't let things go wrong. But for example, in terms of the services that you're offering, in terms of the firm growth, I'll tell you one chartered accountant. He's from, if I remember, Bhopal or somewhere, from not even Bhopal proper, it is from a town. What he did was, he was working with a lot of textile merchants, and they have this big problem of stock estimation and controlling stock. He did AICA course on day one without any knowledge whatsoever, and he developed a software which he initially distributed to many of his clients in textile merchant, in that area. It got so popular that it got picked up by others. He started charging a small fee. Now he's doing great guns. So you see how you are able to, apply yourself, offer yourself without any expectation, and you automatically get the recognition and you build up any new area of practice. This has happened in many cases. If you look at the very way that we started looking our own practice, when I started in cybersecurity, there were no takers. There were absolutely no takers. But I said, no, I love this space. I'm going to be in it. We started with one of the clients. They said, we'll not pay you anything. And that started in Y2K. So I didn't know how to go about doing that. But I said, okay, let's try. And we did that. We were able to see the common sense behind it and, get this through. In fact, in another audit which we handled was just the reconciliation of the fixed deposit ledgers in those days when you didn't have any automation. What we did was we identified, in fact, there were two ledgers. One was a computerized ledger, another was a manual ledger. We had to reconcile the two. And when we identify fraud, wherein several of these people have been a group of rogues, and they pose themselves as professionals, and they were actually encashing expired fixed deposit certificates in the pretext of saying we lost the certificate, get a new certificate in another branch, submit it to another branch. Because of the lack of reconciliation and computer internal controls, it failed. So that created a new opportunity, because then they started, the first time the management started, oh my goodness, this is a new dimension of, internal control failure. So what I'm saying is, look at each of these dimensions of your firm, and each of them could hold a very strong candidate for digital transformation, firm growth strategy. You can certainly look at it, because you say, what is the analytical skills that I have? What is the interest in which I have, where I can consolidate upon, and start as an understudy. Even if you are aged, you're on the long side of the day, it's not a problem at all. You start with an understudy, you know how to get that. Rest simply happens. So engagement management, audit documentation, all of them, if you really look at, I would urge you, I don't know how many of you have seen the ICAI hackathons which are on the website. If you have not done, I will urge you to do that, because it is our own members, some of them who have, I would think, done some masterpieces in terms of development using AI. And it solves many of these problems. I would certainly urge you to please take a look at it. So I think the message broadly is very clear: arise, relearn, and reinvent. This, in fact, I must thank the Udupi branch. That's where I picked this up, their tagline. But it's so well fitted, because the first thing that's required is mindset transformation. And once we start doing that, drop your obsession for the traditional routine practice. Even I have felt that when I used to be doing, for my clients, the statutory audit. I used to enjoy that a lot. But then I said, no, I got to get into these new areas. And that's where I had to completely transfer my entire accounting and compliance practice to my partner. I said, I'm going to only do system audit. Didn't get a single system audit for 2 years. I only got internal audits. But then it started. And once it started, it just started coming one by one. So once you start proving yourself, I would think that the clients do take recognition. They do encourage you if you are the right kind of client, of course. So, of course, another important thing today is vote to automate, because automation is the only way you can. It's a very simple world today. You either digitize or perish. Age is only a number today. If you think you can, you can. Very simple. And dedicate this. I will learn AI and explore newer opportunities. Just have that very clear thing in your mind. You will start getting into the right kind of groove. Relearn. It is very important to understand, as chartered accountants, we cannot be AI professionals or any other professionals. It's not a technology professional here. You cannot match a MSc in computer science. But in applied AI, we understand business. Therefore, the most important thing to actually keep on sharpening is our domain knowledge, not the IT knowledge. Many people think, oh, let me start learning Python. It's not necessary at all. I'm not saying you should not. You can. But today you have vibe coding, which can help you with simply using the Gen AIs and developing codes and complete, application software. Train your entire team on advanced prompting, because that can really help you to get some fantastic results. Automate several processes. Advanced analytics you can achieve. Privacy, IS audit, cybersecurity are going to be huge areas in the coming couple of years, wherein you will be asked to help with. Then reinvent, of course, to start with dedicated automation of your office routines. That's where you get the confidence. Continuously innovate with at least 3 new areas of practice. Very important. Even if you don't get paid, it's perfectly okay. Volunteer to the client, say, I will do it for you free of cost, or for a very small fee. Show them the value that you can deliver. They'll automatically pick on you, right? And think of the client always beyond compliance. I think gone are the days when compliance used to pay us well. We are going to see that only specialized compliance, the number of professionals who can be in compliance practice, is going to be very far and few between in the coming years. And very important, as many of the leaders have said, be the change you want to see. And very important, here are some of the micro habits that I learned that can transform the macro of your firm. Number 1, always, as you rewind for the day after a hard day, just after you are comfortable, finish whatever you want to do, 3 minutes daily, make it a regimen to ask yourself why and the what if of whatever you did in this day, then across the month, then across the year. So it's very important to stop thinking or continuously keeping yourself mind into the drudgery of work. Very important to think, disconnect, and connect. Visit your client for whom you are doing compliance, but don't talk compliance. Very few of us would have ever sat with our clients for whom we do the typical compliance work, understood their business, and you will find that there are very simple common sense things you can help them with. So lateral thinking can tell you what you have been seeing along, but you are not looked at so far. And that is where the client will give you 1,000 times of gratitude that you can look at. And at least one new insight, at least daily, have a note. wherein you use AI or whatever you think, but think differently. Look at a regular report that goes to your client, maybe an MIS or a balance sheet, but add your note of saying that I observe, so and so is what has gone wrong, or this ratio, whatever. He may not have expected that from you, but give that dimension to him. They will stand up and say, oh my goodness, this is very interesting. I never knew about it. So that will tell the client that you can also be a consultant. Then very important, bridge the tech mindset gap. Very important, because this gap can completely make or break your future. So one step at a time, start learning at least 2 tricks in technology every week. For example, how to pull out data from an image of an annual report and how to really do an analysis of forensics on that. Very simple thing, but you will get such insights that you'll be surprised to know how it works, right? Then teach your staff to think out of box. It is very important to keep empowering, even though they will leave you. But the leaving you can be cut short if you provide them the right kind of vision and you make them understand. You have to work a lot with current generation to make them understand the value of practice. There is going to be tremendous value of practice as we go forward, but not in the way that we see today. Encourage innovation and learning. I can tell you that some of our article clerks whom you train on AI can produce miracles for some of the work. Very simple things like advanced tax automation for your clients, or simply helping them to understand the accounting standard compliance. So several things can be done. Encourage innovation. When the student is ready, the teacher disappears, as they say. You will find that when your staff start learning, they contribute like anything, and that becomes a constructive competition across the firm. Last but not the least, transform radically. We don't have much time. Do investigate every mistake that happened, but don't blame it on a person. But look at where did the process fail. Automate that process, share the document, and build the team confidence. That way, what happens is the team will always be with you. They know that we can fail and we will not be punished for that. So you have the right to action, not to the fruits. I think you know where it comes from, right? So it comes from the Bhagavad Gita, wherein you clearly know that we have only the right to action and not the fruits. And the fruits will automatically come. That will happen. So I think this end with this is from Jeff Bezos to say, what's dangerous is not change. What's dangerous is being comfortable. And that is what we need to remind ourselves. And let us please remind ourselves, the motto song that we keep on singing of our institute, it holds the key to really how we can change our mindset. Ya esha sukteshu jagritim. Awake when others are asleep. But that also means that we are constantly looking for the good of everybody who is associated with that. You start with that thinking of stakeholder governance from an enterprise governance point of view, wherein we think about the well-being of everybody. That is our way of thinking in this country. Let me tell you, our accounting professionals produce some of the stalwarts across, and they did it because of the Indian value system. I think we should not get carried away with the Western value system, which talks about accreting more and more of wealth. And ultimately, I have seen most of these guys who build so much of wealth ultimately don't know at their last years what to do with that. So I think it's important that we start looking at our own value system, be guided by that. I think thank you so much for that. I'll be happy to take any quick questions. Of course, we can always connect offline. And thanks to Madhukar sir and Priyanshu ji and Satish ji, everybody for the opportunity. Thanks again. Over to you, Prashant. Priyanshu ji.
Madhukar sir, do you have some questions?
No, I think we have passed the time. We do
Yes,
have
yes.
questions, but
Yeah.
maybe we can send it to Vittalji for answering.
Yes.
You can close because it's 9 minutes beyond time.
Yes, yes.
My apologies for that. Yeah.
So as we conclude for today's powerful webinar, so I, on behalf of the committee for members in practice, so we thank you all for the respected speakers, dignitaries, and participants for making this session meaningful and memorable. So today's powerful webinar has given us the 3 messages. Patience is not waiting; it's preparing for with the faith and discipline. Persistence is not repetition; it is purposeful consistency. The end of practice, as usual, is not the end of opportunity. It is the beginning of practice and intent, innovation, and impact. So let us continue to learn, unlearn, and evolve together. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Have a great evening ahead.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Vittal and Vinay. Thanks a lot. Very
Thank you.
insightful.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.